A vast majority of the time when you come back, it's not going to be in the clamps. Your frame will probably be by the sink behind me on the floor or under the bench or somewhere. Just make sure, like I said, your name is on it so you can find it. So if we take the clamps off, lay them aside, a lot of students will have a lot of glue squeezing out. So grab one of my glue scrapers and you're just going to scrape as much of that glue off as you can to get it flat. And if it's bubbling up, you're going to need to scrape a little more. Mine doesn't have a ton because I've done this enough, I know how much glue to put in. But beginners tend to put in a little more. Now, as close as I said this board was planed to this thickness, I still have a little bit of a lip on both and a little bit back here too. And there's a million reasons why that could have happened, but I need it to be pretty flat, flatter than this. So I'm going to run it through the wide belt sander to get it flat, though I'm trying really hard to keep it as thick as possible. Back at the wide belt sander, I'm going to go through the steps again, but much quicker than I did the first time. We have our frame. Step one, turn on the air. I can hear it hissing. Push the down arrow till it opens to about 1 inch. Put your frame on the table but under the compression knob, and then hold the up arrow till it stops itself. Right there, it stopped. It's around 740. That's fine. Then turn it on and go. Now I'm only going to sand enough so that it flattens out, at least close. I don't want more than 2 or 3 passes if possible. If your frame is way off, you may need a few more, but this one's pretty close, so I'll only do it till both sides are flat and be done. I tend to put the frame in at a bit of an angle, so it's a little bit easier on the belt, but either way works. Very good. I went through one pass, and this side I don't feel the bumps here. On the other side, I'm going to do one more pass, and I think I've got it. So it's hard to see on the camera. This one is perfect. There's still a little lip here and a little bit there, so I'll do another pass. Do the same thing, however many it takes to get it flat, but keep it as thick as you can if possible. Here's your table. I've turned it upside down again. It's got 3 sides, and here's the frame. We just sanded it. Now when you put it in, the frame should be too big. Good. We made it about 1/4 inch too big both directions, so it won't fit either direction. Now, in addition to it being too big, each of these legs are in the way. Each corner will have to be notched out, and we'll do that after we cut it to the right size. So, take your tape measure, and if you've built your table the same as mine, these measurements should be the same, but always, always double check. I'm going to measure from the inside of this rabbet to the inside of this one. Now notice I'm not going here to measure because this part can go in and out. That measurement can change. Back here, where the legs are screwed in with this apron, it won't. So I have 15 1/4. All right, so what I like to do, because it's easy to forget, this is how it's going to go in. I have my alder piece facing towards the side that doesn't exist. I'm going to write 15 1/4 going that way, and it needs to be that wide so I can remember. We measure the other way. We hook it on the end of the leg, and we measure to the inside of this rabbet. Now I have about 16. I have actually 16 1/16, and that's fine. It can be off a hair. I want that in 1/4 inch. That was the spacer that we used when we put these together. So I'm going to round it to keep my measurements simple. I'm going to go down to 15 3/4, from 16 to 15 3/4. So I'm going to write 15 3/4 and put arrows so I know it has to be that length. These are going to help me out later on as I trim it to size. Come to the back of the shop where the table saw is set up with this sled. So if I say go to the sled and do this, this is what I'm talking about. So what we need to do is trim this down to size. So here's the issue we're dealing with. The long edges, this is a good edge, and this is a good edge because there's no joint, there's no dowel joint in there. The other ends, where there's a dowel joint here and here, they're not even. They're close, but they're not perfect. So what I need to do is trim that so it's perfectly flush and 90 degrees perpendicular to the other edge. So all I'm going to do is take one of my edges. Let's say my solid alder. That's a good one that I'm going to see. So I'm going to put that against the fence, the stop back here. And I'm going to mark. That's the edge that I am cutting from. This is the edge I'm going to be cutting, so I'm going to mark that as well. All I need to do is trim a little bit off. Now, technically, if everything went well, this is a 1/4 inch both directions too big. With the blade being 1/8 of an inch thick, the teeth are 1/8 of an inch wide, I need to take 1/8 of an inch off of this edge and 1/8 of an inch off of this edge, and it'll be right. So we're just going to trim 1/8 of an inch off to get that flat. And then I'm going to turn and trim 1/8 of an inch off the other edge. So here we go. Simply take the board, press it just lightly up against the blade, pull back, and then I go over 1/8 of an inch further, and I'm looking right here through the plastic that the teeth are just going to be removing 1/8 of an inch, which means I'll have nothing over here but sawdust, not a thin piece. I'll have sawdust, and that's it. Turn it on, wrap your finger around it here, have your other hand on the other side so it's even, and push. Then I pull away and then pull back. Notice that I did not push the thing all the way through so that blade is exposed. You don't need to. That's too far. So now that end is good. I know that this end has been cut. I put an X on it, it's done. Turn 90 degrees. So that cut is now against the fence. Touch it to the blade, and I know it's running, so very lightly. Right there, you can hear it touch. Pull back, and then move it in 1/8 of an inch, and cut again. Hold it tight. Away and back. Now I mark, that one's been cut. So that one's good, X means it's been cut. So now I need to cut it to the exact size. I have 15 3/4 this way, and I have 15 1/4 that way. This machine doesn't have a fence on with the sled that you can use. So I'm going to take it to the other table saw that has a fence that I can set and cut the remaining 2 cuts. We're back at the table saw. Now it's fairly simple because I've already got my measurements marked on here. 15 1/4. I'll do that one first. 15 1/4. Lock it in. And then double check. Which way is 15 1/4? It's this way. So I know I've either got to cut this end or this end. Here's my X. That end has been cut. It's correct. It's flush. So I'm going to put my new cut end against the fence and cut off the other end. Now the machine is off, so I can raise this and look. I should only be cutting about a blade width, and that's it. If you're cutting more like a 1/2 inch or something, double check, because something's not right. So I already see it looks correct. I can cut. All right, so this is now correct. Now I'm going to turn it to the other X where I know that's been cut, and that measurement here says 15 3/4. So I'm going to be cutting the alder at 15 3/4, and I know it's got to be right because I already did the other one. And we cut off just a thin strip, less than 1/16 of an inch thick, and that's how it should be. Now my frame is cut to the right size. Now we can notch the corners and make it fit in. We've taken our frame. Now I know it's going to fit. Now, because the legs are still in the way, I know I can't actually set it down, but the back end fits between the rabbets correctly. And if I set it this way, it's a 1/4 of an inch in from the end of the leg, and that's also what I want. Now we have to mark and notch around these legs. So I'm going to set it in there and just put a little line from my pencil right along the inside edge of each one of these legs, right here and right here. Then I kind of flip, set it in the other side. Now remember, this front expands and contracts, so I need to push it in a little bit and put the same marks right there and right here. Now I'm going to do it the other way. So we put these in this way. I have it all the way back against this rabbet. I put my mark right there. And here. I'm kind of pressing my pencil against the leg so I can get it flush. Turn and do exactly the same thing again. Right there. Oh, I need to lift that up a little more. There we go. Right there. So I've got all my marks. Now we're going to take what's called a tri-square And we're going to lay that on and draw those lines. That one, and then go 90 degrees, and draw that one. So that has to be cut out on the bandsaw. Do the same thing on all 4 corners. There we go. So all of these corners, we're going to nibble away with a bandsaw. I have 2 bandsaws in the shop. It doesn't matter which one you choose. Just turn it on. You're going to nibble in and then back out, turn, and cut again. And remember, I want to cut on the inside of the line in the square that I'm removing. Don't cut on the line. I want to keep it nice and tight. Take your frame and see how it fits. Sometimes they're going to be a lot tighter than you think. So stick it in there and then press down. There we go. That actually fit in pretty well. Squeeze it all together, and it should be fairly flush here along this edge, and that's great. Mine is pretty darn close. If it's a hair inset, that's okay. It's the bottom of the table. If it's too tight, if it just will not fit in, go back and cut the notches a little more, or if you need to make your frame physically a little bit smaller than the measurements we had, now's the time to go and trim it or sand it or cut the notches more until it does fit in the way you want and everything fits correctly. But before I glue it in, I want to get rid of all these marks that I put on. In addition, the alder in the front, this still has a lot of teeth marks from the table saw. I want to sand that off too. So take the time to get things sanded right now. Everything is now sanded. It looks good. I know it fits, so now I'm going to put in glue. Now, guys, be careful with how much glue you put on. What I don't want is for it to be dripping down on the sides and interfering with our drawer later on. So if you do put in glue, set it in there and you see it dripping, simply get a paper towel and let's wipe that out. So I am going to put glue on the side of that rabbit, not on the bottom of the rabbit, because when we push down, it should go down anyway. So on the 3 sides right there. And then we set this in just like we did before. Now, did you see what I did? I moved them aside so that I'm not scraping the glue down. I want glue on the side. So I opened it up a touch, put it down, and then squished it in. That allows glue to be set where I want it. So right now, the biggest thing is I want this one to be all the way back. So I put a clamp right here, make sure it pressed down, and then put a clamp there. Fine. These, now all I'm worried about now, because it can't move, is just push down and clamp it in. And it may take a couple of clamps, more than I have, maybe less, but get it clamped in really well and let that glue dry. Press that down. Good, all those gaps are disappearing, and that's what I was hoping. Good. Let this dry, and then next step is we're going to start working on your drawer. I saw a few glue drips, so I'm taking care of that right now with a wet paper towel. And it's really important to get as much glue off those sides and back as you can. I didn't have much, but if you have a lot, just keep scrubbing till it all comes out. We need that nice and clean for the drawer spacers.